everyone. This is the Parks Academy, where we discuss and celebrate all things theme parks related. We focus mainly on Disney parks and resorts in both Anaheim and Orlando. My name is Paige.
My name is Steven.
And today we will be talking about Disneyland versus Magic Kingdom.
This was this was my idea because when we were in Magic Kingdom last, I felt like I got more time to kind of think about it a little bit because I had been there previously. So this was sort of my opportunity to kind of come at it with a different eye than just like my very first time in there. But do you want to do what we're excited about really quick? And then I do have a little bit of front matter that I found interesting. So if you want to do that first.
Yes. What are you excited about this week?
Oh, you flipped it on me. I'm happy that the holidays are over and that it's out of my house.
That everything is back to normal.
Yeah.
No decorations. We've had decorations in our house since August 1st. September 1st? September 1st.
Yeah, because you go pretty nutso on fall decorations.
I do.
It wasn't even fall was fine because it kind of blended.
It was fall,
I'm
then
just kind of glad
Halloween, then fall again,
Yeah.
then birthday party, then Christmas.
I'm just glad that Christmas is gone out of our house. And I took down all of our decorations this weekend outside. And it's nice to pull up to the house and see that there's not lights up. And it wears on me quickly. So I'm glad that it's nice to kind of clean slate a little bit.
Back to reality.
Yeah, right.
There it is.
Kind of like a baseline.
Yes. What I'm excited about this week actually already happened. And that is that I got a massage for the first time in like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It is life-changing. If you've never gotten a massage, go do it, people. It's worth it.
Yeah, cool.
I can feel my shoulders again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm excited about this week, is that I won't have so much tension in my shoulders.
I was happy for you that you got to do that.
Thank you. I was very excited to do that.
Yeah, I kind of stayed home and watched our kid and made dinner and
watched football.
And watched football.
And I had a little self-care moment, and it was awesome. I loved it.
That's great. I'm happy for you. So just like a little bit of front matter, like I said, before we get into any kind of Disney, like Land and Disney World or Magic Kingdom stuff rather. Did you hear the news about... So obviously we talked briefly last week about Bob Iger being back, and I know we said we were late to the game, but we took that, the whole month of December off. So one of the things that I've said before that I was so impressed with about what Iger did originally when he took over for Michael Eisner was that he immediately brought in a bunch of different properties under the fold. So he brought back Pixar. A little bit later, Star Wars came in, Marvel, stuff like that. And, obviously Disney is notorious for buying things up. Like 21st Century Fox was one of their recent acquisitions. Did you hear who they are? And they own ESPN. Did you hear who they're in the running with Comcast tonight to buy another company?
You mentioned this earlier this week, but I can't remember.
No, I don't think I did because it came out today, I think. Or maybe I mentioned it to you this morning. Time's a flat circle. But they are, they're looking at buying the WWE.
I'm fairly certain you mentioned this the other day.
I think I said it this morning.
That was this morning?
I think it was, yeah. Time's weird.
What? It's been a long day.
Yeah, but isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I don't know what they want with that. It feels so off-brand.
It does
for
feel
them.
really off-brand.
But I found that to be an interesting little tidbit because, I don't know. It just seems weird.
Are they going to incorporate that with Wide World of Sports? Is that even a sport?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's kind of acting, but
weird. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's just, I was weird. I just found that to be strange. But what was compelling about it to me was as soon as Iger came back, within a month, he's already working on deals to buy things. Whether or not people think it's good that Disney has a bunch of properties under their belt, they're buying up as many things as possible. I still think that it's just an interesting thing. I don't know how I feel about it. I've never watched professional wrestling. So I don't know, but
my brother was super into professional wrestling when he was 5 for some random reason. Out of nowhere, none of us watched it. My dad wasn't into it. My brother just got super into it out of nowhere. And that is all I know about it, is when he would talk about it and play with his action figures.
I knew personally a ex-wrestling professional, and they were no longer in the game. I guess. But it was interesting to kind of get a look into that world a little bit. Just because it's such a fascinating kind of explosive like scene over there.
It is.
So this isn't a wrestling podcast and I'm not an authority on it. I just thought it was interesting to see that Disney's in the running.
I wonder
for
if
it.
this is the only target audience that they don't have with all of their other properties.
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? Like
don't know.
ESPN, you have all of like the dads.
Yeah, you
and
have
people who love sports.
Yeah, you have everything from like NASCAR to football and
And then you
tennis and
have
stuff.
Disney adults, and you've got
Mhm.
kids, and you've
Right.
got babies, and you've got
grandmas
like,
and grandpas and
teenage girls
yeah.
and grandmas and grandpas. And
Mhm.
like the only people you didn't have was like the young men, unless they're like Disney adult men.
Well, yeah, but they have Marvel and they have Star
Yeah.
Wars and stuff, right?
But if you're a Marvel and Star Wars person, you may not be a WWE person.
Yeah,
like
I don't
maybe
know.
those are two different categories of people.
Yeah.
So
I don't
maybe
know.
they're like, this is the last category of no overlap with any of our other properties.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see, like, because there's a lot of, we will get to our topic eventually.
We will.
But there's been a lot of like debate about how like Disney has ruined Star Wars for people because of how much they've expanded it. I think the opposite. I think they've done a lot of service to it. But then there's things like with Disney Plus, where once Disney made the acquisition of 21st Century Fox and the entire library of The Simpsons was on Disney Plus, I found that to be exciting because I like the show. But first of all, it was formatted incorrectly. And secondly, they make all these really, really awful shorts where, they make all these really terrible little shorts where it's very Disney-fied, and like they did one with Billie Eilish and Lisa. I don't remember. I don't remember who they did one with recently, with like a musician or something. But they're just awful. They're awful shorts. So I don't know what's gonna. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen.
I have
with
no
it.
idea.
But it's just interesting to see what they do with acquisitions and
I
different
have
things.
one other bit of news before we get into it.
Okay.
Have you heard about the new Disney dining promo cards?
I heard you talking about it, but I didn't really look into it.
Yeah, so evidently this summer, let me look at the dates here. It is between June 25th and September 14th. If you visit Walt Disney World with a minimum 4-night stay on property
That's doable.
and 4 days of park tickets minimum,
Mm-hmm.
you get a dining promo card basically. So it's not a dining plan,
Right.
but per room, not per person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Based on whatever level resort you're staying at. So value resort, moderate resort, deluxe resort. It's tiered. So you get like value resort for June through July is $35 per night in dining credit, basically, on this
for
dining
a group.
promo
So
card.
like for a group that
per
goes
room.
out. But that's what I'm saying. But like
Yeah.
if like our family goes out to eat at Jock Lindsay's, we have like $35.
We'd have $35
credit for
per
us.
night.
Cool. That's nice.
Right, that
I mean,
we
that's
stay.
not
Minimum for
nothing.
night. And
Yeah.
then moderate resorts at $75 per night in June and July. Deluxe is $125 per night for June and July.
Mhm.
And then it goes up a little bit for July through September.
Right.
And so that would be $50 for value resorts per night, $100 for moderate resorts per night, and $150 for deluxe resorts per night. So
That's
we're
good.
not getting the dining plan yet back, really. But I actually think this is really a good draw for people to come visit.
Yeah.
A lot of people visit during this time. So I think that's super sweet of them to
Mhm.
include this as like a summer promo when
Yeah.
that's not really when they need people to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really hopeful for us that we may continue
Yeah.
to see more deals like this, or
That to me feels
giving a little bit back to
that
us
to me
as
feels
fans.
like more of a good faith effort as opposed to a promotion.
Yes.
Where, it just kind of seems like a low hanging fruit to try to like get people to say, hey, you know what, there is still stuff for you, and we're sorry that we so royally overcharged you because apparently, Disney fans are already overweight according to JPEG. Don't pull that out. So that's why he was saying like they were making food more expensive, right? Or something like that. What did he say?
Yeah,
And it's some
remember his
garbage
exact
like
quote.
that.
Right.
And so it's just nice to see that they're like, hey, we're sorry. Here's like stuff back
Here's
that
some
makes
free
you feel
food.
welcome. Yeah, here's some free food. Enjoy it. But yeah, no, like stuff that makes people feel welcome and valued is good, because I do feel like a lot of the value is dubious at best. lately, but I'm just gonna, I guess, like for our discussion. So for our discussion about talking about Magic Kingdom and Disneyland, I did want to start off with one thing that I think is worth noting. Last week on our show, we talked about, or maybe I talked about, how we were pretty much in on going to Disneyland sometime this year, maybe in the summer. And so this week I decided to add some tickets to my cart online just to kind of get a feel for what the situation was going to be. For 2 adults, for 3 days at the park hopper tickets, and I ended up scrapping Genie Plus just because I was like, I don't really need it. It was going to cost $870 for 2 people, 3 days in the parks.
And that was not staying on property.
That's not even booking a hotel
right
yet.
Yep.
That
no food, no dining promo.
Yeah, that stinks. It's not
Yeah.
really going to factor into what we're talking about, but that like was a huge gut punch to me because when I was a senior and no, I was a freshman in college, and I had occasion to go down to Los Angeles quite often. And I bought an annual pass for $500. $500 for an annual pass, 2012. This was over 10 years ago, which is wow. But yeah, it was $500, no blackout dates.
Yeah.
Like I bought the best one I could get. And so now to think like we would have to spend, like if it was like $300-400 for 3 days, that's not a problem. Even 500, I'm like, okay, I can kind of get on board with that. But like, that is just, I mean, we were talking to some friends about it the other night, I think last night, about the price, and they were like, oh, that's not so bad because you get the hotel, right? I'm like, no, this is just, it doesn't include parking, nothing. So that's not factoring in necessarily to my thinking here, but I just I thought that was an interesting thing to open up with, especially with the 100-year thing coming up and getting people into the parks. I was kind of floored.
Well, right, and all of that to say that is now looking fairly unlikely for us this year, especially if we're talking about doing a Walt Disney World trip sometime in the fall or winter.
Yeah, because when I booked I'll just say it. I don't really care. When I booked our trip for 3 days in the parks and Disney World, 5 nights, no, 4 or 5 nights in a hotel at the Caribbean. I think it was 4 nights, 3 days because we had an off day.
I think it was 5 nights, 4 days, but only 3 park days.
Yeah. I spent $2,700 for both of us to go. That's like, I mean, that's expensive, sure. Like,
but it's
no
staying
doubt.
on property.
But we stayed on property. We had 3 days in the parks, and we were staying at a not cheapest resort. So like, I felt like that was expensive, but it was actionable. Like we could kind of process that and make it worth our while.
And you use our budgeting tips from our earlier episodes.
Yeah, like we did fine. We there was no like credit card pile up after the trip, but I just yeah, I mean, we would have to not only get to California, which is not hard because we have family out there and we were going to kind of couple trips anyway, but paying for it and then, like having to get hotels and everything is just excruciating. So yeah, it's we actually had family that was interested in coming with us, and then I told them the price and they're like, yeah, we're out. We're not doing that. There's no way we're going to do that. So
yeah, that's just a lot to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, I don't want to ever become a complaining podcast. I swear.
I think I sprinkle in enough optimism to make it balance out.
Well, and I'm not complaining. I'm not saying like it's not fair. It's how dare they. I'm just saying it's expensive.
Well, yes.
But let's get out of that and just talk about like,
let's dive on in
from just like a money aside experience level. Do you want me to go, or do you want to say some things, or what do you want to do?
I would say you start because I know you're going to be Team Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and kick us off.
It's not even that I'm Team Disneyland per se. It's more of that I just you always kind of said like, oh, Magic Kingdom is my least favorite park, and secretly I always felt like Animal Kingdom was my least favorite park out of like, if I had to choose. But when we went, something about Magic Kingdom just kind of left like it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and I just wasn't like thrilled about being there necessarily. Like I had fun with our daughter, like the experience was fun, I was excited to be there and see the castle and do everything, but something about this may just be the fact that I grew up a Disneyland person, but something about the layout feels wrong. It feels off to me.
And the weirdest part is, after our trip this past October,
mhm.
that was the first time I left Magic Kingdom, because we went to Magic Kingdom twice this time.
Right.
We had the Magic Kingdom day, and then we had Mickey's Not So Scary. This was the first time I left a Disney trip and was like, man, I loved being in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like that when I was younger, when I was a kid. But it's been a long time, probably 15 years since I really left Magic Kingdom saying, that was as good as the other parks. That was the first time in a long time I felt that way.
The weirdest thing about it for me is that I'm really tripped up that the entire thing is not continuous, which is to say that it's not a big circle where you can basically start on Main Street, go to Adventureland, and end up in I almost said Spaceland, end up in Tomorrowland by not having to turn around or go a different way. You just can go like all the way through Adventureland, New Orleans Square, or Frontierland, New Orleans Square, kind of whichever way you're going. And then you can kind of walk back through Batu now, which used to just be like a big walkway. And then come out through Fantasyland or by Toontown and then keep going and be back in Tomorrowland and then back in the hub. So I think something about that just kept tripping me up, that like, I can't explain it.
And it's almost
but it felt
a loop.
so weird to me.
It's almost a loop, except when you go
to like where Big Thunder
through
is.
Adventureland.
Yeah.
Frontierland is kind of its own little corner, and Frontierland does not cut directly over to Fantasyland. That's where we would get up in there to, like, we saw the parade boot to you from there, and then we went straight to Pirates afterwards, but we had to sort of backtrack once we went up to boot to you. Sort of that awkward corner.
Yeah, it is an awkward corner.
But it's because of the riverboat there. That's why. They don't have a bridge that goes across the water.
Okay.
Straight across from... What is that? Is that...
Frontierland? Like where Big Thunder is?
Where the little island in the middle.
Oh gosh. It's like Pirates. Is it Tom Sawyer's in Disney World or Magic Kingdom still? Or I'm showing that I don't know anything about anything. I know it's like a Pirates layer island in Disneyland, but I actually don't know what it's called. We're in Magic Kingdom, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I just think, I just think that I don't want to be a Disneyland purist. I think that's kind of gross, but at the same time, something just felt wrong to me, and it's really, really hard for me to like wrap my head around why it felt wrong. It just did. And I genuinely do not know why.
It's still Tom Sawyer Island.
Okay, yeah. I mean, do you think I'm wrong, or I mean, you can certainly disagree with me.
No, the layout of it honestly doesn't bother me because it's what I'm used to. So I don't typically spend a bunch of time back in the corner where like all the little kitty circus stuff is.
Right.
So I pretty much typically will just start in Tomorrowland because that's my favorite area, and then walk back behind to Fantasyland, cut through Liberty Square, and then work my way around to Frontierland and Adventureland kind of simultaneously.
Right.
And then just pop back to Main Street USA. So it still, to me, feels like a circle. It's just, you're not moving continuously in a round pattern. You do have to do a little bit of backtracking.
Right.
So in that way, they don't feel that dissimilar to me.
I mean, so I guess like if you were to go the way that we went, it kind of technically is a loop because we went through like Adventureland and then back through Frontierland and then up into Liberty Square or something like that. So I guess in that way, it does make sense.
Right. It's just if you go back to like Big Thunder and...
Right. Maybe that's just what's tripping me up is there's an entire space where like nothing's going on. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like that all made sense in my head. I guess
there's no backtracking required in Disneyland. That's why you say that.
Yeah, right.
Because you can continue around and hit everything.
Yeah.
Frontierland, you'd have to like come back to it from Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
But you could cut through it and then make your way back to Fantasyland. So it's not... Disneyland, you don't have to backtrack anywhere. You can just keep walking and walking and walking in a circle.
Right, which is like
And we've spent a lot of time talking in a circle about the shape of these parks.
I know. I'm sorry. Again, I don't, like I said, I really don't want to be like a purist about this whole thing. It's just something that just came to my mind, and I don't know why.
No, it makes sense. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite area in Disneyland? What's your favorite land?
I'm gonna not say Galaxy's Edge because that's a cheat for me. It just feels like a cheat.
Well, Steven's favorite area in all of Disneyland, like Disneyland Resort, is probably Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah,
but
right, right.
other than Galaxy's
But I'm gonna,
Edge,
yeah,
what's
I'm
your
gonna nix
favorite
that.
land?
I like this little space between like Adventureland and New Orleans Square is probably my favorite spot.
So Adventureland and New Orleans Square. And how would you say that area compares to Adventureland in Magic Kingdom?
That's much better, I think, because Adventureland and Magic Kingdom, it's the thing that's strange to me about it is that the magic, like the Aladdin carpets in there are just they feel out of place. Can't explain it. Also, the fact that like Pirates of the Caribbean is in Adventureland feels weird. So I think that yeah, I don't know. I think I prefer the one in Disneyland. I think
it's confusing that Pirates is in New Orleans Square because pirates are not from New Orleans. That to me sounds like Adventureland.
They're from like Adventures.
That's why to me, at least the pirates location
right
in Adventureland makes the most sense. Now all of that to say it in Disneyland, New Orleans Square is my favorite spot.
Yeah.
I've said this on the podcast many times. It is no secret. I love that style, the Mardi Gras feel.
Mhm.
I want to stay at the Port Orleans Resort in Walt Disney World. There's just something about that I'm really drawn to. So I love walking through that area, especially at night. I love walking through New Orleans Square. But I am a Tomorrowland girl. I love Tomorrowland in both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. But in Magic Kingdom, it's Tomorrowland, and in Disneyland for me, it's got to be New Orleans Square.
Yeah. Magic Kingdom for me, I will agree with you that I think that Tomorrowland is superior only because not only because but primarily because the people movers there, which is a big thing. And they Carousel of Progress is there, which is great. And then Tron, opening up and stuff is cool. It's bigger. It's definitely, there's more to do there. Whereas I think in Disneyland, there's not really a whole lot of rides in Tomorrowland. You have like a Speedway, which is, basically Autopia, Space Mountain, Astro Orbiter. And then like, what else do they have there?
Nemo is in Tomorrowland.
Is Nemo in Tomorrowland?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Finding Nemo, and then the monorail goes through at
What
Autopia. The railroad is Star Wars, Star Tours, Space Mountain, and Astro Orbiter and Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. But like there's all that plus more, I think, and with like the exception of Finding Nemo and stuff. But I think, yeah, I'm with you. I think that Tomorrowland and Magic Kingdom is better.
I think the area of Tomorrowland in Disney World is just it's superior. I mean, like Tron aside, obviously it's not even open yet. But once Tron is in there, forget about it. Like it.
Yeah. No, it already adds so much to the
cool. And hopefully one day we'll see either an upgrade or some sort of switch to Autopia and the Tomorrowland Speedway.
They need to get rid of
There's
those.
so much that they could do with that.
Yeah.
I mean, they could turn it into something with IP. They could just completely do away with it and use that space for something else. Like there's plenty of other, between Disney and Pixar and all of their other properties, Star Wars, all of it.
Yeah.
There's so much they could do.
Yeah, they could make it like a wrestling race or something.
Perfect.
If they go through with the acquirement. Yeah, I'm with you. I think, the other thing that I find interesting about Tomorrowland and Magic Kingdom is that, and this is no fault of anyone's really, it's just kind of how it is right now, but where Stitch's Great Escape was, that's kind of no man's land right now. I don't think there's anything, I haven't heard about any new stuff coming in yet. And so I think it's like a meet and greet at the moment.
Yeah, it was a meet and greet when we were there in October, and then it was a trick-or-treating stop, right?
Yeah. So I just I think they need to fill that spot in, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hope that I'm making some semblance of sense because you know what I mean?
No, it makes sense.
Okay, so this also kind of sounds, I think, like a purist kind of thing. But one of the things that I find fascinating is I'm not like when you go to Disneyland, it's very clear that like this was the vision of what was supposed to happen. And this is kind of like what Walt did and stuff like that. And I don't feel that in Magic Kingdom, but I do feel that, for instance, in like Epcot. Even
I think
though
that makes sense.
his vision of Epcot was totally different than what's there
Well, right.
currently, walls aside, I feel like when I'm at Epcot, I'm like, oh yeah, this was like its own thing, and this was like supposed to be this way. It feels almost like Uncanny Valley to be in Magic Kingdom because it feels like it's very similar, but then there's other aspects that like aren't quite right and feel off.
So what I think of when you say that is that Magic Kingdom was a replica of Disneyland on bigger land with slightly different attractions.
Bigger castle?
And a little more spread out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right.
I mean, like Disneyland has attractions within Disneyland Park that are in multiple Walt Disney World parks.
Mhm.
So it's like you get more bang for your buck in Disneyland because you're getting multiple parks worth of rides. But the trade-off is you can hardly walk through the walkways because it's so cramped.
Yeah, you're correct about that. What else I find really fascinating too is that we actually have a 1955 poster of Disneyland in our recording area. Huge. It's like a great map, and I've looked at it in great detail, and it looks like nothing besides the shape, like the kind of weird shape of the park. It is it's like almost unrecognizable from what it is now versus what it used to be. So yeah, I mean, I obviously I get it. Like things change and they move and progress and stuff like that. I kind of find it sort of interesting. But I also kind of wonder too, like what was Walt's brother's name?
Roy.
Was it Roy? I thought that was his nephew.
No, Roy Disney.
I think
right?
he had two. I think he had a nephew. Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, the thing too is like one of the so this is actually an interesting comparison that I.
Yes, sir. It
Was
is
Roy?
Roy
Okay.
Disney.
You're right. I think this is kind of an interesting comparison too because so obviously when Walt died, he never got to see Florida like come to full fruition. And so Roy was like, well, it's my responsibility to see my brothers, my younger brothers, like vision and push it through and make this thing happen. And it kind of reminds me, no disrespect, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of how like JPEG was a businessman and he's like was doing something very creative, but Iger was like more creative. Where because it was obviously like from documentaries and history and stuff, like Roy Disney actually kept Walt's feet on the ground from like a business perspective and handled finances, made sure like documents were going through properly and they secured all their permits and stuff to do what they needed to do. So that like almost like the pushing like I think it was like the Imagineering video or something, the series on Disney Plus where they talked about how it was really a struggle for people to even have vision of what to do and like how to even make it happen. So I wonder what it would be like had he been able to like have his touch still on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be interesting to see the
Yeah,
difference.
I mean, obviously there's nothing we can do about that.
Right.
It's just something that you kind of wonder.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of things would have been different if Walt had been able to be here for a lot of the Walt Disney World properties. I wonder if Epcot ever would have become what he had visioned for it. I wonder if the other parks would have even happened in the way that they did, if Imagineers would have had as much freedom to kind of, or even the chance to create, because Walt was such a visionary.
Yeah, and he had his hands like on everything pretty much.
Right, which is not to say that it wasn't great, because it was, but I just wonder if there would have been opportunity for somebody like Joe Rohde to do as much with Animal Kingdom as he did. Like, if that was even within Walt's purview of ideas for Disney.
The other thing we don't really know either is like how much, IP would have remained and stayed in there,
Right.
because he, so much of what he did had to do with like old stories, and he like the Western kind of live action films he did for a period of time. And so now I feel like, so much of Disney is the fun beloved characters and like all the classic, stories that we know, like Alice in Wonderland, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, all that, plus like all these other plethora of characters and movies and other franchises that weren't even adopted, by Disney until after the 2000s. So yeah, it's all just like hearsay and just kind of interesting to think about. But I think that, ultimately they're both very comparable in their own way. I think I need to go back to Magic Kingdom again, though. This is just this whole episode has just been like propaganda for me to get another trip under my belt. But I think that it'll be helpful for me to go in again and kind of like think about it, and also not be stressed out about it being our kid's first time, because we did a lot of backtracking because we had to get to the baby center. So maybe
Right.
that's part of where my head was at too, is like we never really got to kind of stay in one spot for very long.
It felt like more backtracking than was necessary if it was just an adult trip or if we had older kids, right? For sure.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to definitely mention about Magic Kingdom that Disneyland doesn't have due to space constraints is I never cared at all about the hub before.
Mm-hmm.
And this last time we spent so much time there just chilling, watching parades and fireworks shows and all the things, the castle shows from the hub. It was such a wonderful little spot to park the stroller and just relax and kind of people watch on Main Street, which I love people watching, whether I'm in a theme park or on vacation or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But in Magic Kingdom, to be able to find a space that feels less crowded, that I could just park my stroller and watch a parade go by, it was awesome. There's hardly ever a time where Magic Kingdom feels like you can step away from a crowd, but the time that we were there, the hub was pretty much empty every time we went.
Yeah. Right.
And so it was really nice to be able to just kind of like park there and take a breather
Mm-hmm.
in what felt like a super open space. You don't really get that in Disneyland. There's not
No, you don't.
anywhere, because of, like I said, because it's so much more compact.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really an opportunity to say, I'm going to park my stroller on this big patch of grass and be by myself.
Yeah, like stretch out your legs and kind
Right.
of enjoy yourself.
So
right.
I never really appreciated that until this last trip.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was pretty awesome. And I had never thought about the difference between Magic Kingdom and Disneyland in that way. I've talked extensively about the castle and how underwhelming the Disneyland castle is because it's like teeny tiny.
I get it. I mean,
compared to the
Cinderella's castle is not as big as you think it is.
Well, but growing up seeing the castle in Magic Kingdom, and then you go to Disneyland for the first time expecting it to be the same size, just a different color, and then you're like, wait.
Right, I get
that's it. And then putting that in perspective with how crowded the walkways were and how narrow everything was, I just didn't really appreciate Magic Kingdom for what it was until this last time, I felt like.
Do you want to hear something crazy? Speaking about castles and their height.
What?
Beauty and the Beast castle is only 15 feet tall.
Yeah, that's forced perspective.
It's just a model. I mean, it's literally like just a model. It's crazy.
I know.
It's kind of interesting.
But it seems like it's big. Disney Magic, man. They're the best.
That's right. I'm honestly kind of in a state of being bummed out about Disneyland tickets, and I'm trying not to think about it while I'm talking about like what I like about it.
It's okay. We'll get back eventually.
We will. That's totally true. I guess like other than that, I mean, there's not really anything else that feels like again, this isn't really like a complaint or a big comparison. It's just kind of like, I think it has a lot to do with feeling too, and I think that so much of it is just like, broken nostalgia of having grown up in a certain place and like thinking about it as more of a childhood thing. Whereas like when you go somewhere as an adult after you've been going somewhere from a kid all this time, it just doesn't quite, it feels different and not quite as like, you don't really feel as in tune to it, which I think is how you feel about Disneyland in its own kind of way.
Right. Well, we both have the childhood nostalgia for what we always refer to as our home parks. So Magic Kingdom, to me, I have childhood nostalgia where you have Disneyland nostalgia. And then we both went to the opposite park as adults for the first time. So where it still felt magical the first time I went to Disneyland, and certainly the first
you hated the
time
castle.
I was just underwhelmed. That's all.
That honestly hurt my feelings so hard. I was so excited for you to see it. I'm like, look, this is the house that Love built, and you're like, this is awful.
I couldn't even see the top of it.
Yeah, you're like, where is it? Lol.
I was just confused. I just thought it was another building at the end of Main Street.
It's okay.
But yeah, I think that it still feels like it has that special Disney magic, and especially for me going to Disneyland as an adult, for me it was extra special because it's like, okay, well, now I'm in the original Disney park for the first time. So that was still novel for me.
You know what I think for real is that I feel that sense of like individuality and unique aspects of every other park. Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Epcot, California Adventure, they're all like their own thing. I feel like because there's like almost like a 1-to-1 ratio between Disneyland and Magic Kingdom, it's almost inviting itself for comparison.
Well, right, because it's like Magic Kingdom wasn't anything that hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
And all of those other parks are unique, like you said.
Right, because like if someone offered me an all expenses paid trip, I just had to pick which one I wanted to go to, I would probably say Magic Kingdom. Or sorry, excuse me, Disney World. If like I had to choose between the two of them.
Right.
But
you wouldn't spend all your time in Magic Kingdom.
No, exactly. Right. Whereas if I go to Disneyland, I actually feel like I could be very satisfied to spend all my time there and not really go over to California Adventure if I had to choose. Like if I only had one day. If I only had like one day in Disneyland, I would go to Disneyland itself. If I had one day in if I only had one day in Disney World, I think
you'd go to Hollywood Studios, don't even lie.
I would want to, but I think I'd actually go to Epcot.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? Animal Kingdom?
Animal Kingdom and DCA.
Yeah, we're like just total. That's why you got to go for multiple days.
It is.
You bundle and it's cheaper.
I know. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. But no, I really do. I am fond of Magic Kingdom. It is nice.
And if you guys want to hear more about our specific like ride comparisons, if you look back at some of our earliest episodes, we did a handful of episodes, both this or that episodes, and then comparing 1-to-1 directly the rides like Pirates in Disneyland versus Pirates in Disney World. So check those out if you want more specific reviews about the actual attractions in those two parks.
I feel like I need to revisit that because I said Magic Kingdom Pirates in that one over Disneyland Pirates, and I completely take it back now.
Now that you've done it again?
Yeah, now that I've done it again, I think the queue in Magic Kingdom is much better, but the ride itself is Disneyland through and through.
Which if I recall, is exactly what I said.
Yeah, and I hadn't been on it since like 2017, so I didn't really remember all that well.
Right. It had been a while.
It had been a minute. That's going to wrap it up for us. We appreciate you guys listening and being part of our little podcast journey here. You can definitely find us on Instagram at the Parks Academy. We are online at theparksacademypod.com. We do have a Patreon if you want to check that out, and also any reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, whatever, are very, very much appreciated. So thanks again so much for listening, and we will catch you guys next time.